Honda has unleashed a faster and more focused Civic Type R in this 4th generation, guys. This model for the first time using a turbo, and one that transmits twice as much torque to the tarmac. It looks the real deal.
Is it aggressive enough for you? Welcome to a model proud of its performance, proud of its heritage, and proud of its status as the very fastest front-wheel drive performance car that you can buy. Welcome to this 4th generation Honda Civic Type R. Honda needs this hot hatch to be good, not only to rejuvenate its image in Europe, but also to satisfy the feverish sense of anticipation that accompanied almost every stage of this car's development. For fully 3 years before this Mark IV Civic Type R's eventual launch in the early summer of 2015, pictures of prototypes littered the motoring press. The Japanese brand hoping to get ardent fans of this model line used to the fundamental engineering change made this time around: the adoption of turbo power. Let's not underestimate this. The switch away from a normally aspirated engine in this top Civic was a huge step for Honda to take. Look back through history and you simply don't see turbos in the company's sporting cars, whether your point of reference is the S360 and S500 models of the early 60s, or modern-day Integra Type Rs, S2000 Roadsters, or original versions of the NSX supercar. In any of these models, you rev the engine off the clock to get the performance out of it, rather than relying on a turbo to do it. And the whole thing came with glorious oral fireworks that, with later VTEC power plants, were characterised by a distinctive banshee wail. But that was then. In the here and now, buyers of sporting cars, and particularly hot hatches, expect more power than a compact, normally aspirated unit can give. To compete towards the top end of the shopping rocket market, you need over 300 PS these days, nearly 50% more grunt than this model's 3rd generation predecessor could manage. And so you need a turbo. Delivering that, yet keeping the Type R charisma of this car intact, was one challenge with the FK2 generation model. The other was delivering on Honda's determination to credibly establish the ultimate Civic as the fastest front-wheel drive performance car that money could buy, an equally difficult task. After all, no other brand believes it's realistic to effectively transmit that amount of power to the tarmac merely through a spinning pair of front wheels. Honda thinks differently, but then it always has. Has the company got this car right? Time to find out. In a world where the fastest hot hatches have lately become subtle and sophisticated, this Civic Type R bucks the trend and returns the genre to its years of shopping rocket excess. True, you don't need to be quite as much of a dyed-in-the-wool enthusiast to own the 4th generation version of this car as you had to be with its predecessor, but it'll certainly help if you are. Climb into the driver-focused cockpit and all the most extrovert GTI segment cues are present and correct. Retro-tastic red seatbelts, loudly trimmed, high-bolstered bucket seats, alloy pedals, even a grippy, brightly branded sports steering wheel with one of those centre position markers at the top, etched in evocative double stitching. It never sets out to be the place to please the kind of buyer who would otherwise choose a rival Audi, BMW or Volkswagen hot hatch, and we're promised a driving experience that will be just as unashamedly distinctive. Which means, well, what exactly? Push the start button, and those 4 fat tailpipes emit a bassy rumble. It's time to take to the tarmac. Have you tried a Type R Honda of any kind before? It'll probably help if you haven't. For those familiar with the breed will find it hard not to arrive here with expectations that belong in another, different, normally aspirated era. A time when you had to thrash through the rev range to access the performance on offer, but were rewarded as you did so by a glorious mechanical melody growing in intensity all the way to a stratospheric 8,000 RPM redline. The addition of turbocharging to Honda's 4-cylinder 2-litre VTEC power plant means that things are very different with this 4th generation model. Thankfully though, oral fireworks still remain. The way they're delivered is very different. With the high valve lift the VTEC system used only to provide at high engine speeds, this time delivered at much lower ones. Now that reduces turbo lag and massively increases torque. This car's 400 Newton metre figure being more than double that of its predecessor. Now it sounds good on paper. What's it like on the road? Well, whereas with the previous generation's normally aspirated model, not much happened performance-wise until you thrashed the thing to over 5,600 RPM. This time round, torque begins to build from under 2,000 RPM, though the ultimate raucous urge only cuts in from around 3,500 RPM upwards, possibly to help tame initial unruly wheel spin and torque steer, the feeling of the wheel writhing in your hands under hard acceleration. Those two issues were the major challenges the engineers faced during this car's development. They had been told by Honda CEO Takanobu Ito that this must be the world's fastest front-wheel drive car, yet the 310 PS power output necessary to take this Type R clear of rivals like the Renault Sport Megane in achieving that took this Civic well beyond the power ceiling other brands had previously placed on front-wheel drive capability. Reached 300 PS or beyond, and before this car arrived, it was generally accepted that you either had to channel power through the rear wheels, as BMW does with its M135i, or employ a heavy four-wheel drive system of the kind favoured by Audi's S3 and Volkswagen's Golf R. But you can see the problem. In any car, the front-wheel drive formula works well enough with modest power, but overburden this setup with turbo torque, and you risk spinning away your rubber from rest even before you saddle those same wheels with the task of changing direction. Honda noted, though, that other brands had, to some extent, successfully addressed this issue with previous, slightly less powerful front-driven hot hatches. Ford with their Revo knuckle system on the Mark II Focus RS, and GM with its Hyperstrut design on the Mark II Astra VXR. Both setups split the front suspension strut into two main components to make it more effective, and it's that same approach the Japanese brand claims to have perfected here. Thanks to their dual-axis strut front suspension system, this Type R can tame its torque steer by up to 55%. Does it work? Well, yes, to a point. The dual-axis system's certainly effective, but in hard driving, you're still very much aware of how much of a struggle it is for this Type R to contain its ferocious power, particularly if it's wet, or if you're giving everything away from rest in pursuit of the 5.7 seconds it's supposed to take to sprint to 62 miles an hour. Still, maybe that's as it should be. The whole point of this car is that when driving hard, you should, at least to some extent, feel that you're having to tame it. In a rival Golf R or Audi S3, you can go very fast, actually slightly faster than you can in this Honda, but you never really have that Fernando Alonso kind of feeling. This Civic gives you that, even if ultimately behind the scenes it's flattering the quality of your driving with things like a mechanical limited slip differential and an electronic agile handling assist system that together help you with traction through the corners. Now, if you're driving in this manner, you'll be wanting everything this Type R has, in which case you'll be wanting to press the R+ button to the right of the instrument binnacle. Think carefully, though, before you do, for this is a setting optimised for the fearsome Nürburgring Nordschleife racetrack on which this car holds the front-wheel drive lap record. And that means it's going to feel pretty over-extreme almost anywhere else. The bright red instrument dial illumination is the first thing you notice after activating R+, but that is followed very shortly afterwards by the realisation that things beneath you have stiffened up pretty massively, an adaptive damper system firming up the ride by 30%. Our guess is that you'll try it and then switch back pretty quickly for public road use, which is a pity because the other things you get in R+ setting, firmer steering and sharper throttle response, are actually quite nice to have on your favourite back road. This mode needs to have individually configurable elements like, say, Audi's Drive Select system does. One thing the R+ mode doesn't do is spice up the exhaust note. That's already quite loud enough. Yet another thing that'll put German brand hot hatch buyers off this car. Honda's engineers are proud of the fact that no Focus ST-style fake sound actuation has been used here, but in some respects it might be better if they had, for the noise the VTEC turbo engine delivers is very different from the frantic, raspy scream that characterised the old model. Rush towards the 7,000 RPM red line en route to the quoted 168 miles per hour maximum, and what you get is more of a monotone boom. What will please the purists is the shift quality of the 6-speed manual gearbox. In contrast to direct rivals, there's no paddle shift auto option. If we had to choose our favourite thing about this car, then that would be it. The shift action you get from the evocative aluminium alloy gear knob modelled on that of the first generation Honda NSX supercar that Ayrton Senna helped to develop. The great man would have liked the snickety-snick quality of this box, which encourages you to take control and rev the engine to the max, even though that extra torque now means that you don't necessarily need to. This well-weighted steering adds to the enjoyment, encouraging you to exploit the grip of the bespoke Continental tyres and the downforce of all those skirts and spoilers. It's an addictive recipe, a proper driver's car, a proper Type R. Honda calls this a race car for the road, and you certainly get that feeling the first time you make this Type R's acquaintance. If you were about to buy into the subtle understatement of a direct rival like a Volkswagen Golf R, an Audi S3 or a BMW M135i, then look away now because you won't like it. The in-your-face styling treatment is much more likely to appeal to someone attracted to one of the more overt, lesser hot hatches, say a Ford Focus ST or a Megane Renault Sport, but who likes the idea of power and aggression being turned up a notch. All of which is fine with us. It's nice to see a different approach in this segment. Not everyone feels shy about owning a super-fast shopping rocket, and if you don't, and you want everyone to know that you've got one of the very quickest, then here perhaps is your car. The colour-coded aesthetics and the piercing LED front lighting technology certainly makes its point, but ultimately, in taking this Type R seriously, it helps to know that all those wings and slashes and spoilers are there to make the thing go faster, rather than merely make it look quick. So you need these huge grills in the front bumper section to cool the 2-litre VTEC turbo power plant, with airflow channeled through the engine bay to the outlet vents on the trailing edges of these blistered front wheel arch extensions, fashioned from aluminium to help save weight. The same vents cool the bigger Brembo brakes, while the front bumper has been designed specifically to inhibit air turbulence around these front wheels, enhancing high-speed stability and further reducing lift forces. Move to the side and you've very much the kind of profile you might expect from a Civic on steroids. Again though, look beyond the max power excess to the intricate engineering that's prompted it. You've got these lightweight, high-rigidity 19-inch alloy wheels shod with Continental tyres that were created through a bespoke development programme designed around the intricate, unique handling characteristics of this car. And then there are these deep side skirts that, like the wide front splitter, are another key factor in reducing lift, creating downforce and pinning the car to the road. This huge rear wing also does that, of course, combining with an almost completely flat underside to further suck this Civic into the tarmac. With aerodynamics that are carefully enhanced by the design of this potent-looking piano black gloss rear diffuser with its prominent dual tailpipes. Sort of thing you get on a race car. Further up, these stylised rear combination lamps feature LED light bars that complete a distinctive visual signature. Time to take a seat inside, where the differences over the standard Civic are rather more restrained. These high-backed competition-style sports seats with their red belts the main change, the kind of thing that you have to pay extra for on most rivals, with prominent side bolsters for greater lateral support through the kind of extreme cornering that Honda thinks Civic Type R owners will habitually engage in. You get this lovely suede effect black fabric with red double stitching and positioning that places you further down into a floor itself already lowered, a combination that leaves you sitting 30mm closer to the tarmac than you would be in an ordinary Civic. Typically, for a Type R model, the gear knob is fashioned from machined aluminium alloy, which looks nice but feels freezing in winter while branding your palm with a gear shift chart in the heat of summer. It's beautifully positioned though, falling perfectly to hand, as close to the steering wheel as it could be for easy access to the short shift throw that gives you lovely, quick, snickety changes. Ah yes, the wheel, the other point of Type R cabin differentiation. It's a proper flat-bottomed leather-trimmed affair with slimmer spokes for a more tactile feel. Serious intent is underlined by a red-stitched centre position marker at the top of the rim, the kind of thing you get on all serious sports cars for a visible indicator of the steering wheel angle while cornering. We also love the plaque you get attached to the transmission tunnel, showing your car's individual production number. Otherwise, the feel and architecture of this cockpit is much as it would be in any ordinary Civic. A willfully futuristic look that combines dual-plane architecture with a curious mixture of analogue and digital instrumentation. Directly ahead of you are three deeply recessed sporty dials, the Type R branded rev counter appropriately taking centre stage, with the two outer gauges flanked by buttons for the engine start system and the R+ performance mode that changes the instrument backlighting to a potent red. Above this main binnacle lies what Honda rather pretentiously calls the driver interface zone, an upper display that arcs over the main instrument binnacle and is viewed above the steering wheel rim, gathering essential information like speed at the natural point of eye focus. Also conveniently on your eye line is the so-called iMid multi-information display screen, sighted slightly up and to the left, that updates you on things like the time, plus audio and trip computer functions, as well as a whole range of Type R specific features. You get readouts for boost and oil pressure, water and oil temperature, along with information on cornering G-forces and your brake and throttle pedal positioning. There's also a lap timer, plus something I've not seen before, the glorious option of measuring your own 0 to 62 miles an hour or rest to quarter-mile acceleration times. Brilliant. Anything this iMid screen can't tell you will probably be covered by this 7-inch colour Honda Connect infotainment touchscreen, which is positioned above the climate control switchgear in the centre of the dash. Now, annoyingly for me as an Apple user, it's an Android-based setup. Still, if that works for you, then you'll be able to use the display's pinch, swipe and tap functionality and its clever mirror link function that allows you to mirror your mobile handset's screen display and gain access to its applications. If I can come over all old tech for a moment though, it is irritating not to be able to play CDs. You won't have a player for those unless you get yourself the sat-nav upgrade that comes with the plusher GT version of this car. So in this standard model, you'll have to have your music stored on your phone and plug it in to the provided USB socket, or alternatively, you could listen to the included 6-speaker DAB audio system, or enjoy internet radio, given that you can browse the web here. Plus, it's possible to download and access a whole range of apps, AHA, for example. Time to take a seat in the rear, access to which is obviously aided by Honda's decision to make this 4th generation Type R hatch model the first to feature 5 doors. Coupe-like rear side profile styling aims to disguise this with swept-up side windows that incorporate concealed rear door handles in their outer corners. These combine with the standard rear privacy glass to give the back seat of the car a slightly claustrophobic feel, but there is reasonable room for 2 adults once you take a seat inside. You would struggle with 3, even though the central transmission tunnel is commendably low. One disappointment is that this Type R model's redesigned mechanicals have meant the deletion of the ordinary version's magic seat system, whereby, on a standard Civic, the seat base can be flipped up, cinema style, for the carriage of taller items. Still, at least once you raise the rear hatch, the cargo area is as large as it would be on the ordinary model, with 477 litres available. Now, that's nearly 40% more than you'd find in a rival Volkswagen Golf R or BMW M135i. And I can't resist pointing out this space is nearly twice as big as the one provided by the Audi RS3 that we recently tested. If you need more room, the 60/40 split folding rear backrest can be pushed down to create a completely flat floor that offers you 1,210 litres of total carriage capacity up to window level, and more if you load to the roof. It's an established hot hatch price and power formula. You want around 300 PS in this kind of car? Then you'll probably be paying at or around the £30,000 mark for it. And so it is with this Civic Type R. The standard version will cost you almost exactly this amount, but many Type R buyers will want to find the extra £2,300 that Honda asks for the better specified GT variant. In contrast to previous generation models, this one comes only with the 5-door Civic body style, and unlike rival shopping rockets from BMW, Volkswagen, Audi and Seat, Honda isn't offering a paddle shift automatic gearbox option on the car. But that's okay with us. If you really are a typical Type R enthusiast, then you'll want to swap the cogs yourself. The feel of this car's 6-speed manual shift is one of the best things about it. So, how does this top Civic model's value proposition stack up in the shopping rocket segment? Well, if you're to properly evaluate that, you really need to understand the market and appreciate that there are now 3 distinct classes of family-sized hot hatch. Muddling models between these subsegments merely leads to confusion. Let me explain. At the affordable end of the sector, generally in the £24,000 to £28,000 bracket, you find yourself on the first serious rung of the family hot hatch ladder, looking at cars like Volkswagen's GTI, Ford's Focus ST, the Megane Renault Sport, the Peugeot 308 GTI and the Seat Leon Cupra, with power outputs ranging from 230 to 280 PS. At the other extreme, priced at close to the £40,000 mark, lie the kind of expensive ultimate contenders that the industry describes as super hatches, with 4-wheel drive, twin-clutch paddle-shift transmission, rally motorsport technology and a level of turbocharged power output that can lie anywhere between 350 and 380 PS. It's a heady combination typified by cars like the Audi RS3, the Ford Focus RS and the Mercedes-AMG A45. This Civic Type R sits most comfortably between these 2 subsegments in the cluster of high-performance hot hatch models, priced and powered at or around that 300 PS, £30,000 power and price point I was talking about at the beginning. And this little group covers the cars that you really need to be pitching against this Honda. BMW's rear-driven M135i, or if you like the idea of 4-wheel drive, Volkswagen's Golf R, Audi's S3, or maybe even the Subaru WRX STI. Now, before this Type R arrived, the idea of a front-wheel drive car taking on that quartet might have seemed ill-advised, but against all the odds, this Honda has emerged as the enthusiast's choice at this level. Drive one, and you'll understand why. If that's what you want, and you feel Honda has hit the shopping rocket sweet spot with this car, then you're going to want to know just how generous the Japanese brand has been with the standard spec. Now, the £8,000 premium that you're paying here over the next sporting Civic model down, the 142 PS 1.8i VTEC Sport variant, certainly gets you a lot more car. The power output more than doubles to 310 PS, and you can make use of it too, thanks to an adaptive damper system that allows you to set the ride up to suit your mood, a dual-axis strut front suspension setup to tame torque steer and wheel spin, and agile handling assist torque vectoring to help get traction through the corners. A tempting R+ mode button is a one-shot route to focusing the car on speed when the red mist really descends, and there are 350mm Brembo front brake discs clamped by uprated 4-piston calipers to help keep all that acceleration under control. Exterior embellishments are many. That potent, bespoiled body kit has divided opinion, but all will like the unique, lightweight 19-inch alloy wheels running low-profile Continental tyres, developed specifically for this Type R. Also included on the standard car are automatically activating LED headlights, front fog lamps, rear privacy glass and a security alarm. Inside you can expect to find low-set sports seats with red suede-style fabric, a grippy leather-stitched steering wheel and alloy trim for the gear knob and for the pedals. Additionally, there's climate-controlled air conditioning, cruise control with a speed limiter, a rear parking camera, a keyless start system, Bluetooth phone compatibility and the Honda Connect 7-inch infotainment touchscreen with USB and HDMI jack compatibility. Via this, you control a 6-speaker stereo system with a DAB tuner. You can browse the internet and enjoy internet radio. Plus, you can also download and access apps like Aha. If you want to go further, then the first obvious step is to check out the Plusher GT variant, recognisable by a red styling line on the front and the rear skirts. The key GT spec inclusion is a Garmin satellite navigation system, along with a CD player as part of the Honda Connect package. But you also get rain-sensing wipers, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, front and rear parking sensors, power folding mirrors, a couple of extra stereo speakers, and a whole series of electronic safety aids that come as part of Honda's Driver Assistance Safety Pack. And we'll get to those in a minute. Whatever variant you go for, your dealer will want to draw your attention to extra cost options. For us, the Honda 3D sound system is an obvious box to tick, adding as it does a digital sound processing unit into the car to enhance stereo sound quality. We'd also be tempted to say yes to the interior carbon pack, which lifts the cabin ambience by adding carbon fibre trim to the centre console and to the glove box. There's an exterior carbon pack too, which adds this evocative trim to the tailgate, the rear spoiler and the front fog lamp bezels. Much less effective in our view are the interior and exterior red packs, which splash red flashes liberally around the car. This Type R is max power enough already. You can specify the various carbon and red pack items individually if you want to create your own effect. And there are a few other items that you might want to look at. A roof spoiler in rally red or body colour, and possibly red ambient front footwell lighting too. On to safety, a pretty important consideration in a car this manically fast. Like all Civics, this one gets a pretty complete package of features, hence its 5-star Euro NCAP test showing. These include an ABS braking setup with emergency braking assist to aid in panic stops, which are advertised to following motorists by automatically activating brake and hazard warning lights. There's vehicle stability assist, Honda's version of the kind of ESC stability control that you would expect on a car of this kind. Other standard safety features include hill start assist, which will stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, and ISOFIX child seat fastenings. There's also a CTBA, City Brake Active system, which is there to scan the road ahead for potential collision hazards at speeds of under 18 miles an hour. If one's detected, then you'll be warned. Now, if you don't respond, or you aren't able to, the car will automatically brake itself to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. If you should have a crash, then you'll be glad of twin front, side and curtain airbags, anti-whiplash front head restraints and a front-end section of the car which is designed to minimise pedestrian injuries. There's also Honda's ACE, Advanced Compatibility Engineering body structure, which distributes impact forces away from the passenger compartment and helps in underride and override situations where a collision has taken place with vehicles of different heights or weights. If you want even more safety peace of mind, then, as I mentioned earlier, the GT model provides it with its DASP, Driver Assistance Safety Pack, a whole raft of clever electronic features that together will make it very difficult to hurt yourself in this car. Things like a forward collision warning system that gives you much the same kind of functionality as the City Brake Active setup, but at higher speeds, monitoring the distance and closing rate between you and the vehicle in front as you drive and warning you when you're too close, or even applying the brakes if a collision becomes likely. The DASP pack also includes a blind spot information system to stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another car. Also, a lane departure warning system to stop dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway. Also, a cross-traffic monitor, there to stop you from reversing out of a parking space into the path of another car. A high beam support system, and that will automatically dip your headlights for you at night in the face of oncoming traffic. Plus there's traffic sign recognition that pictures road signs as you pass them and displays them for you on the dash. If, as is very tempting, you thrash this Civic Type R absolutely everywhere, then you might as well stop watching now, because nothing I'm likely to say in this section will have any real-world relevance. You certainly won't get anywhere near the quoted fuel and emission stats that I'm about to give you. 38.7 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 170 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's pretty much what's quoted by direct rivals like Volkswagen's Golf R and Audi's S3, and it's significantly better than the readings that you're supposed to be able to get out of BMW's M135i. It's instructive to realise that this 310 PS third generation Type R is 45 grams per kilometre cleaner and will take you 8 miles further on every gallon than its 200 PS second generation predecessor. If you want a mark of technological progress, then you've got it right there. A big factor in these returns is found in the standard fitment of a stop and start system. Honda calls it idle stop, to cut the engine when you don't need it, which is sitting in traffic or stopped at crossings and traffic lights, for example. Unlike a normal Civic, though, you don't get a green-tinged Eco Assist system to encourage you to drive more efficiently, or the green Econ button on the dash for activation of more frugal throttle mapping. That wouldn't be very Type R. On to the warranty, a 3-year, 90,000 mile deal, which is a bit better than most rivals, who tend to offer guarantees limited to 60,000 miles. There's also a fixed price, comprehensive aftercare package called 5, which includes 5 years servicing, 5 years warranty and 5 years roadside assist. Now this gets incorporated into the monthly cost of a Civic Type R if you buy it on a PCP finance package, or it can be added to the purchase price of a new model for a one-off payment of just £550. In a world where roadside assistant packages might cost you £100 a year by themselves, that seems like a wise investment. What else? Well, a front-wheel drive car with 310 PS will always eat its way through front tyres at a higher rate than normal, despite the efforts of Honda's dual-axis strut front suspension system in resisting torque steer. At least residual value shouldn't be too bad. Type R Civics have always held up pretty well in this regard, and there's no reason to think that this improved variant will be any different. As for insurance, well, it'll always be expensive on any hot hatch, but the Group 33E rating is actually slightly more affordable than that applied to the previous model, possibly because of the standard City Brake Active setup that can, if necessary, automatically brake the car to avoid accidents at urban speeds. There's a sweet spot in the hot hatch sector, and we can't help thinking that 300 PS and around £30,000 delivers it. You get a useful step up in performance from the kind of pace on offer in, say, a Golf GTI or a Focus ST, without stretching up to the extreme power and needless expense of, say, an Audi RS3 or a Mercedes-AMG A45. Others, though, have spotted that too, and the result is that there's quite a lot of competition at this level in the shopping rocket segment. The Audi RS3 and the Volkswagen Golf R offer all-wheel drive grip and sledgehammer acceleration off the line, while the BMW M135i delivers the rear-wheel drive handling beloved by purists. So where does that leave this front-wheel drive Civic Type R when it comes to taking on these competitors? Before trying one, you might wonder. After doing so, though, you won't be asking any of those kinds of questions. This Honda offers a quite different, more intense take on what a car of this kind should be. It may be the first Type R to try turbo power, but it's still a pure performance package in the very best traditions of this model line. It's also properly quick, 2 seconds faster than a Lamborghini Gallardo supercar around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and every inch the touring car racer when parked in your driveway. What it isn't is the affordable performance package that it once was. The power and technology needed to deliver that fastest front-wheel drive accolade, elevating this car into competition with more mature alternatives. Yes, something like a Golf R is dull by comparison, but you can't ignore the fact that the Volkswagen will slip comfortably into situations where this bespoiled tearaway might be something of an embarrassment. Your company car park, for example. If you've petrol pumping through your veins and you don't think that matters, then respect is due. You'll choose a Civic Type R because you've remembered just why it was you wanted to buy a hot hatch in the first place, and you'll revel in the extrovert, intoxicating driving experience it offers. There's nothing else quite like it.